Hello, world, and welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. We're broadcasting live from the Joy Virtual Studio here in the beautiful Finger Lakes region of New York State. It is so great to be with all of you today. It is Thursday, February 27th, and we have quite a show for you today. We're broadcasting live on Rumble, live on Twitter, Spreely TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, every podcast platform you can ever imagine through our new partners over at Radcast and about a gazillion other outlets, reaching upwards over 2 million eyes and ears every single month independently, doing it our own way right here on the Shannon Joy Show. You all look amazing today on the live chat. Welcome to the show. Annie is not with us today. I am going solo today. Thank you, Jesus. I know how to self-produce my own show. But Annie, our normal producer, had a complete Wi-Fi crash in her studio. And so she is waiting for the Wi-Fi guy to come and set her up again. We have had one technical problem after another this week on the Shannon Joy Show. But as you all know, the show must go on. And even if I'm melting in my studio at 90 degrees, you guys know I'm still going to do a show. So you guys look great today. Buskman, no beanie today on the Shannon Joy Show. And yes, I am hot. I am seething. The headlines over Twitter over the past 24 hours, the Tate brothers, after intense pressure from the United States, diplomatic efforts pressuring Romania to release the Tate brothers, the self-admitted pimps, pedophiles, and pornographers from Romania, they are heading back to the United States of America as I speak today. It is outrageous. I'm going to sit on this for a moment. We are going to do and devote the entire show to this tomorrow on the Shannon Joy Show. We'll get the reporting from one of the attorneys of the Tate victims. He is Matthew Jury out of the UK. We'll get reports from Murdered by Crayons, who's been on this show before. Also, our friend Nathan Livingstone, who is the producer over at Milk Bar TV. They've been doing stellar reporting on this. It is outrageous. Outrageous. And we're going to get to it. We might get to it a little later in the program today at the end of the show, last 30 minutes. We'll go to the live chat and we can chat about that if we have some time. But we are keeping an eye on it. This is coming as yet another delay for the release of the Epstein files, which was a promise of the Trump administration and also many in his administration. So we're keeping an eye on that as well. And so, yeah, we're going to get to that tomorrow. But today we have a very special guest, and I already have an agenda for the show. We have such an amazing guest. Her name is Dr. Basima Williams, and she's going to be joining us in the Joy Virtual Studio in just a few minutes. She is a functional medicine doctor. She's been practicing for well over 2 decades. She is a friend of the Shannon Joy Show, and we're going to talk about the recent headlines. It looks as if we're going to do this again, right? The pandemic fear porn is ramping up with mass chicken culling, and also the reports coming out of Texas of another measles outbreak. Everyone is losing their minds. It's all over mainstream news media. And amazingly, the Trump administration and even Robert F. Kennedy Jr. are kind of playing into this, right? Are we really going to do this again? That's the question we're asking today with the Trump administration firmly in power and Bobby Kennedy Jr. at HHS. Are we really going to do the health emergency fan dance again to pimp more mRNA? And that's really what this chicken calling is all about, making us so desperate and so sick of $8 eggs that we beg for the mRNA shot so that they can inoculate all of the chickens, which will certainly be passed along through their eggs and into the human population as we ingest it. We have no idea what that could entail or what that means to the human body, but they don't care. They need to sell that mRNA by any means necessary. More concerning to me right now, I watched part of the press conference yesterday with Bobby Kennedy Jr., is the lack of clarity from HHS and Bobby Kennedy on what could be the real cause if kids are getting very sick from seemingly, benign colds and flus. We could be looking at mass immune suppression as a result of the COVID-19 vaccines, which is something that was predicted and has been predicted for quite some time by Geert Vanden Bossche and a whole host of medical freedom advocates, including Dr. Peter McCullough, Dr. Robert Malone, and others. So we could be looking at, an entire population of people who have suppressed immune systems. It's making them more vulnerable to run-of-the-mill colds and flus, and yes, maybe even the measles. That wasn't mentioned yesterday in the press conference, and I think that's a big mistake. So we're going to be discussing this topic and more with our expert today, special guest, Dr. Basima Williams. But first, I want to say hello to all of you and thank our sponsors. We wouldn't be here today without our friends over at All Family Pharmacy. You're going to be hearing from them today on the Shannon Joy Show. Also, Colonial Metals Group, colonialmetalsgroup.com/joy. They are the only company I trust for my physical gold and silver. And you can also look into investing yours or protecting your savings through a self-directed gold-backed IRA or 401k. So we're going to be hearing from them as well. The Satellite Phone Store. We are so thankful for Tina and the team and everyone over at the Satellite Phone Store. Everything you need to prepare, from satellite phones to satellite phone services to Faraday bags. They have generators, they have solar panels, an entire line of those Faraday bags. They have the dark bags. It's just an amazing, amazing company run by wonderful people who support the Shannon Joy Show. Sat123.com/joy is their website, and the promo code is always joy for 10% off everything there. Of course, Don Polano, my financial advisor, PCMPolano.com. PCMPolano.com. Zen Woman is with us on the live chat. Don't forget to smash and share. Absolutely. Please give us a thumbs up. Let them know that you like the show, and comments are always welcome. You guys look phenomenal on the live chat. We have Rothan Walker joining us today. Buskman is with us as well. Hey, Be My Valentine. You look fantastic. We Are All Dead is with us. Guitar Lily in the pretty pink banner. Great to see you. And yes, Be My Valentine. I did see the AI generated, completely bizarre Trump video about Gaza. And we'll talk about that tomorrow as well. I don't know. You cannot make this stuff up. We really are in la la land right now. These headlines, nothing makes any sense. And we'll hit that for sure tomorrow on the Shannon Joy Show. Marky Mark, New Jersey is here with us. I'm here for the first time in days. Marky Mark, New Jersey, where have you been? This is the place to be, the Shannon Joy Show, every day on Rumble. CJP Rumble, of course, is with us. And yes, we are up on YouTube today. We're pursuing a YouTube strategy, getting that geared up. And interestingly enough, we're also going to be pushing out on TikTok of all platforms. So we're going to be platforming the Shannon Joy Show in ways that make sense anywhere and everywhere we possibly can. Because as you know, there are still threats of censorship. There are still threats of deplatforming. We still say things that are critical of the administration in power. And so we always have to be self-platforming, re-platforming, growing this audience in order to make sure that we have a safety net. And so we are pursuing that. Thank you for noticing, CJP Rumble. Of course, the best way to get a hold of me is on the website, completely independent, theshannonjoy.com. If you sign up for the daily e-newsletter, we will always be connected no matter what happens. So please go to theshannonjoy.com right now, sign up for the daily e-newsletter, and we will never be disconnected. All right, so I think we hit all of the points. You guys look fantastic. Let's bring in our special guest, who is going to be a good friend of the Shannon Joy Show. Her name is Dr. Basima Williams, and she is a functional doctor. She's also the sister of Tina Blanco, who is, we love the Satellite Phone Store, Dr. Williams. We love Tina. The audience knows Tina. They've met her multiple times, and I am really thrilled to talk to you today.
Hey parents, I have an early Christmas and holiday gift for you. We've all been there. 1 minute your child is bouncing off the walls, perfectly healthy, and an hour later, this child is very sick. You feel helpless, and it can turn your plans upside down, especially on vacation. After thousands of customer requests, the wellness company has just launched the Kids Emergency Medical Kit. You no longer have to deal with emergency illnesses in a panic. Now you can have 6 critical medications at your fingertips to treat 20 plus illnesses for issues children have, such as strep throat, ear infections, lice, and respiratory illnesses. You can avoid urgent care and hospitals. The Kids Emergency Kit has been hand-selected by the wellness company's medical board and includes chewable amoxicillin, dissolvable ivermectin, and an optional EpiPen and more. This also includes a detailed guidebook guiding you step by step in emergencies. Ordering this kit is simple. Only parents can order for their children. Fill out an intake form and you will get a verification call for consent. Then it's delivered to your door. Don't wait till you're in the middle of a crisis and avoid late-night urgent care runs. Order your kids' emergency kit today and remove panic from your life. And if 1 or 2 of the prescriptions run out, there's a replenishment option to restock only what you need. Go to dailyclouthealth.com and grab your kids' emergency kit right now. Use code DailyClout to save up to $40 at checkout. These kits are only available in the USA. Thank you.
About the nation's health and our health and the threats to our health and the non-threats to our health, right? It's so confusing right now to sift through all of these headlines and know what the truth is. So welcome to your debut on the Shannon Joy Show. I hope it's the first of many.
Thank you so much for having me, Shannon. And I'm so excited to talk about all these topics. And boy, you've got your hands full with all that news.
It is a fire hose in my face.
Yeah,
that is how I describe it. Sometimes I think they do it on purpose. I think it's meant to destabilize and confuse. It was very evident during COVID, right? With the onslaught of news. And, so we're going to slow it down with you, though. We have a lot to hit today. We're going to talk about the mass chicken culling. We're going to talk about the Texas measles outbreak. We're going to devote a good amount of time to the topic of EMF. It is another controversy. The science says one thing and there is another reality. And so we're going to lay that down and really dive into the topic of EMF. Those are, and also how people can protect themselves from EMF. And so that's on the agenda today with you. But what I would like to do first is just get your story. You have an amazing story. You've been practicing for over 20 years. Her website, by the way, is, I have it right here. Let me just bring this up. It is, oh my gosh, where am I? Functional, what is it? Functional, I have it right here.
It's beingfunctional.com.
beingfunctional.com. I am so sorry. Yeah, it's right here. It's right in front of my face. I just couldn't find it. All right. beingfunctional.com is her website, but let's start there with you and your story, how you got into this moment.
So I graduated medical school and residency in the late 1990s and started seeing patients and just kind of living my dream of family medicine. And I shortly became a little frazzled by the fact that I was just prescribing medications. And I just felt so unfulfilled because it was very much anyone can do this kind of a job in my mind. And I wasn't using all of my gifts and talents. And, being from another country where when we would get sick, my mom would go to the kitchen and make something and bring it to us and we just got better. And, I haven't been on antibiotics in so many years, for example, because my immune system was really built up as a child. Yeah. So I really felt like there was so much more that we were missing in the medical world. And the number of cases of autoimmune diseases, number of cases of cancers I was seeing were just starting to go up much more than what I saw in residency. So around 2005, 2006, I started really looking into what we would call integrative alternative medicine. And I came across my initial thoughts on this were based on the children that I saw that were getting certain diseases. Like I gave certain immunizations to a child and then something would happen. And I would investigate that and really look at that. Even if it was a fever, what can I do to decrease the risk of this child getting this fever in the future? What can I do to, decrease these certain risks? So I really started looking into it, and I came across a book that was titled, which kind of shocked me because, I was in the medical world, and it was called What Your Doctor Doesn't Tell You About Immunizations. So I read that whole book. Back then we had books. We didn't have the internet like now.
Right.
So I read the whole book, and I was just floored with some of the truths that I found. Like, for example, you can't sue these pharmaceutical companies if your child gets encephalitis cases. And encephalitis cases can have long-term consequences like mental retardation. I mean, you don't live a normal life. And so this was really interesting to me. So I just kept going from there. That was the start of the fire in me. And then eventually around 2010, I found functional medicine. Then I really left my traditional practice and went all in with functional medicine, which really looks at root cause of disease rather than treating the disease. The problem with treating root cause is there is no pharmaceutical money to be gained. There's no money to be had with treating root cause. And from a primary care perspective, a medical practitioner's perspective, it's a lot harder to treat root cause than it is to just prescribe a medication. So I think those two things, when I started, I was kind of like all alone, that doctor that thinks that way. But now I have so many friends and colleagues that are doing the same thing. And
well, and I think that COVID-19 and the lockdowns of COVID-19 and then the pushing of the mRNA vaccines really shoved so many Americans into this space because they saw the blatant lies and the falsehoods and, that that we were being pummeled with regarding 6 feet social distance and the idea that a mask could somehow stop the transmission of an aerosolized airborne virus, right? The idea that a safe vaccine using novel mRNA technology could be created in 3 months at warp speed and not have devastating impacts on the body, just really blew people's minds. It's why we had about 35% rejection rate of the original COVID-19 vaccine, and it has plummeted since then. What were your thoughts in that time, the dark days of 2020 and in the rollout of Operation Warp Speed? Where were you in that time? Because I know so many people were just shell-shocked by it.
Well, I want to just say one funny story.
Sure. Yeah.
At 6 feet distance, I was hiking one day, and this lady, and this lady goes, "Maintain your 6 feet." As I was walking up to her, I'm like, "Really? Like, as soon as if I've coughed in this space, as soon as I move, you're going to move into the space that I've coughed in." But anyway, I wasn't.
Well, yeah, and I'll give you one too. I mean, I had a neighbor shaking her broom from her front porch at me on the porch because I approached getting within 6 feet of her husband. That really happened. A true story. People lost their minds during COVID, and they really did.
Yeah, but my thoughts when COVID started is, thank God I know functional medicine, because we knew that if your body was ready for a virus, then your body should be able to handle the virus much differently than if your body was inflamed and you were on all these immunosuppressant drugs and hypertensive and cardiovascular disease and all these things. So thank God my patients were, of course we have a patient bias. My patients are the ones who want to stay healthy, get healthy, and use natural ways of doing it, looking at root cause, things like that. So there was no surprise that obesity and diabetes were among leading risk factors for COVID and COVID complications because their body was already inflamed. The cytokine storm was already on a roller coaster ride, causing all this inflammation. And what are we doing as physicians is we're just chasing all these different things that these initial problems are causing instead of just treating that root cause. So if we can really calm down that inflammatory cascade with, when people got COVID, we had a significant improvement in outcomes, long-term outcomes and short-term outcomes. So I actually got COVID and I was sick for like literally 6 hours. So
yeah, interestingly enough, I never got COVID. Never even had a sniffle. And I have been practicing. I've been really off pharmaceuticals almost my entire life, not, for a whole host of reasons. But, that's interesting. So in your practice, you know, what are the mechanisms of sickness? What are the as a practicing functional doctor, what is it that you see among the populations of people that you treat that are the real functions, that are the real things that are making them sick, as opposed to one virus scare after another? We're going to talk about avian flu and the measles outbreak in Texas. But, what do you see that's really making people sick in the 21st century?
I think when you really sort of cut to the chase, if you will, we're seeing imbalances. We're seeing imbalances in multiple different body parts. For example, when you are under chronic stress and all of the hormonal changes that happens with chronic stress, whether it's elevated cortisol, activation of your sympathetic nervous system, and being in a state of fight or flight all the time, your body will react differently to viruses, to food, insulin resistance, obesity, all these, they're all interconnected. And what we need to do as what we teach our patients to do is really live life in a balance. So we try to balance through nutrition, through exercise, through sleep, through social engagement. I feel like social engagement was very underestimated in terms of the negative impacts with COVID. And then obviously managing stress. Once we really focus on those fundamental pillars of health and wellness, I can go back just this week and look at some of the comments that some of my patients have said this week without us doing anything else. And that's what was eye-opening. That's why we started creating courses and things like that to help sort of more people rather than just working one-on-one, where we have really, what I found is when we correct and work with those 5 things, our patients start to get better. And it's amazing. It's amazing. This laundry list of complaints goes down, shrinks down. So that's what we really focus on, is balance.
Yeah, absolutely. And you do focus on gut health. There is a feel good gut health course at beingfunctional.com, which is linked in the show notes of the Shannon Joy Show. So if you guys scroll down, you will be able to gain access to Dr. Williams' website and also the Feel Good Gut Health course. And you are practicing. You do have a full practice, and you do telehealth and telemedicine as well. I don't want to inundate you with, or maybe I do. Maybe you do want a ton of new patients, but this is like the single most consistent comment that I get on my live chat. And I see someone right here saying, I wish I could have a medical doctor who also embraced functional health and holistic healing and natural healing.
Hey everyone, Naomi Wolf here. How are you doing with your New Year's resolutions? January is here. My start was pretty easy. My resolution was to focus on my well-being, and we all know that the foundation of well-being is a good night's sleep. So if I could do just one thing to improve my sleep and overall well-being, it is taking the number one mineral for sleep, which also helps me personally on so many levels. Yes, I am talking about magnesium. Actually, I am talking about the Magnesium Breakthrough by Bioptimizers. It's 7 different forms of magnesium in this supplement, which are involved in over 600 different biochemical reactions in the body. Pretty much every function in your body is upgraded when you do take magnesium, from the quality of your sleep for your brain function, metabolism, to your stress levels. And even if your 2025 resolution is not to focus on your health, as mine is, how are you really going to be able to achieve all your goals without quality sleep and stress management support? It's hard to do that. So please do yourself a favor and make Magnesium Breakthrough part of your daily routine this year so you can get the vitality that you need to conquer your dreams. Go to byoptimizers.com/Daily Clout now and enter promo code Daily Clout to get 10% off of any order. And if you subscribe, not only will you get amazing discounts and free gifts, you will make sure that your monthly supply is guaranteed. Again, that's byoptimizers.com/Daily Clout, promo code Daily Clout. Take care.
right? And the things that you mentioned, sleep and food and exercise, like the basics. It's not the injection. The other thing about pharmaceuticals is this idea that every pharmaceutical product, every pill, every injection, everything that you subject your body to has an impact on your body, and it changes things. And that can be a cascading effect, and that's why your grandmother has 27 pill bottles on her nightstand, right? Because once you get on this kind of pharma roller coaster, it's hard to get off. Am I overstating that, Dr. Williams, or is it something that you've seen?
No, it's definitely true. And we definitely, and again, it's disrupting that balance, right? We don't know what one thing is doing to all the other things. So, and there's also certain patterns that we have to, work with patients with. For example, patients who come in with infertility, we don't, from a functional medicine perspective, we don't force their bodies into fertility with injections and things like that. We look at this thing called the hormone hierarchy, for example, where sex hormones are on the top of the hormone hierarchy. On the bottom is cortisol and insulin. And so a lot of infertility cases, for example, are caused by a condition known as PCOS, or polycystic ovarian syndrome, that is highly linked to nutrition and insulin resistance. And a lot of that insulin resistance, even in thinner people, is linked to chronic stress. So really, it's getting back to balance. That's what your body was meant to heal itself. I'm not saying that there's no room for medical care, and especially emergency medical care. I really don't think the United States can be really outbeat with that. But in terms of your day to day, really looking at creating balance within your own space, your environment, your body, your nutrition, everything that's going in you, really prioritizing sleep. And you don't have to be on a go, go, go all the time. So I have a lot of type A personalities that we have to really retrain.
I've had to retrain myself at points in time. You remind me of Dr. Denis Rancourt, who has been on the Shannon Joy Show, and I must have him on again. Now he's a little bit out there in terms of what, I mean, he questions whether even viruses exist. And I know that is that's a debate. I think it's a valid one. But when he talked about the mass stress event that was COVID-19 lockdown and the psychological impact of daily headlines, death counts, body counts, the fear driven into us. And you and I just mentioned when we started the show, the fire hose in my face. I talk about this with my audience all the time. The D versus R, left versus right, crisis, where, it does not abate, it seems. And as humans, it feels like we need to push it away. Like, we have to figure out how to remove from social media. I'm much more mindful of social media now, Dr. Williams. I have trusted sources that I go to, and I try to limit my time on social media because I feel like it does perpetuate that. But what are your thoughts on that, on just the news cycle and the anxiety and stress that people are pummeled with on a daily basis?
Yeah, learning how to create boundaries is super important. Learning what your strengths and weaknesses are super important. Some people can handle all that and can take it in because they don't internalize it. They cognitively deal with it, and they, like, for example, your job, it's part of your job.
Yes.
So you have to be exposed to it, and you also are used to it and have learned how to deal with it. But the people where it affects them, and they're, the people that are emotionally triggered chronically.
Yeah.
These are self-awareness things that you actually have to become more self-aware that it's really doing that to your body, and stop the exposure. You have an ability to stop the exposure.
Yeah. Well, and I think the fear conditioning, I will say my faith. I mean, everyone in this audience knows I'm a 43-year Christian, strong faith in Jesus, right? Like, fear is not allowed in my world ever. It just isn't. And that's like a choice you have to make every day, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, for sure. I think that doing life without God in this world today would be extremely stressful, in my opinion.
Right.
And so, yeah, there's a foundation that you have, and that speaks to what your ability how heavy does your bucket have to get before you crack and burn? And I think that when you've got faith, you can take a lot more because you know where you're rooted and you
Right.
have that firm foundation. So you have to have that self-awareness of what you uniquely are capable of handling.
Right.
That's what we work our patients through that. We go through, hey, how do you know you're stressed? And for some people, their stress signals are sitting on a couch all day, not being able to get up and move. They may not be having chest pain, shortness of breath, or the sweaty palms, but they may not want to go out with friends. They may not want to get off their couch. It might be harder for them to get up in the morning. They might make decisions in the kitchen, where they're eating a lot more sugar and things like that. So having that self-awareness of when you're going down that slippery slope and what triggers you. While the news doesn't trigger me for the most part, there are other things that can trigger me. But again, my foundation is in God, which is why the news doesn't necessarily trigger me. It doesn't mean I don't do anything about it. Doesn't mean I'm not proactive in what my beliefs are. But you want to know where you are with that self-awareness. I think that's really an important key part.
Absolutely. And this is really relating to the audience right now on the live chat. Zen Woman has a comment. Working from home really got to me. She had to put in place strict rules before that work never came home. So when we were isolated, we were fearful. We were inside. We weren't getting the vitamin D. We weren't grounding. I don't know what you think about those things. I think that grounding and vitamin D are very important. And I will tell you, people at my children are very happy. And one of the things that I attribute my children's profound happiness to is the fact that they're beach volleyball players and they are constantly barefoot in the sand, in the sun, outdoors on a regular basis. I have an 18-year-old, a 16-year-old, and a 12-year-old. They all play. And I think that really contributes to their happiness. In fact, they've talked about it before. And so I can see it in my real life, like being in front of a screen all the time is very damaging.
Yeah. Yeah. It had a huge, by the way, it had a huge impact. My daughter also, I have one who plays volleyball indoor and outdoor, and also one who plays tennis. They're in college now. So
Yeah.
one is going to medical school. One is wanting to be a vet,
That's
but they played. And I'll tell you what, during COVID, when they all of a sudden had to stop, that was a big deal. It got
Yeah.
taken away. And these are things you look forward to as a kid.
Mhm.
And it all of a sudden, and we have no answers. We had no answers for them at the time. Like,
Right.
we couldn't force the school to make them play volleyball. But anyway,
Yeah.
that's beside the point. But the social isolation that happened, I think it also, for all of us parents out there, the social isolation also happened to our children. I think that's one of my personal triggers is when there's stuff happening to people that I love
Yeah.
that I
For sure.
couldn't, that I couldn't fix and I couldn't help. And so that social isolation was really tough. So you really have to think outside of the box to do fun things
Mhm.
to keep the sanity in your house, which we ended up doing. So you have to pivot and adjust, but yeah.
Right. We're talking to Dr. Basima Williams. Please visit her website, beingfunctional.com. It's beingfunctional.com. And feel free to take the Feel Good Gut Health course that is also on her website. She has so many resources there. You do a lot of work with gut health and women's health as well. But I do have a comment on the live chat, someone asking about parasites. And I'm actually very curious about parasites because I hear a lot about parasites and I hear like our bodies are all ridden with tons and tons of parasites and I don't know anything about that. But what are your thoughts on that? Because I think it could probably have some impact.
So you're 100% right. Gut health is primary focus in our practice. So that's one of the primary ways that we start to reestablish balance because
Okay.
70 to 80% of your immune system is right on the other side of the gut lining. And the gut lining is literally like thinner than a piece of paper, right?
Okay.
That's thinner than a piece of paper, keeping the outside world from the inside world. And that thin piece of paper, thinner than a piece of paper lining is so important. It's more than just a barrier. It's actually where the majority of your happy hormones like serotonin is made. It's where GLP-1, to help with weight loss, naturally made in your body. So things like this. So when we look at the immune system though, with a focus with the gut health, we really want to create this nice, healthy barrier so that we can have a healthy immune function. Now,
Okay.
insofar as, now, what was your original question? I'm sorry.
Well, I shouldn't have taken you off topic because I do really want to focus on gut health, but I've heard a lot about parasites lately,
Oh, yes.
especially in the discussion. Ivermectin is an antiparasitic, and there have been many people who have said they've actually seen some really major changes in a whole host of issues, inflammatory issues, after being on a regular course of ivermectin or using ivermectin. So I was just wondering what your thoughts were on that. There are a lot of different ideas about it, but it was the parasites. Yeah.
Yes, parasites. So that goes back to gut health, and what one of the leading causes of leaky gut or intestinal permeability, allowing things to go from the outside world to the inside world, parasites. So we rule out parasites on every single one of our patients. We do a very detailed stool study test. We do a 3-day stool study test. We try to induce diarrhea in case some of the parasites are hiding in biofilms. So we
Wow.
flush the colon out and get these really good samples. And then we actually treat the parasites depending on what they are. And certainly if they're giving patients symptoms, right? So if we find parasites, we treat and the patients feel a lot better. There's that cause and effect, which is nice. Now, in terms of worms, they are actually using therapeutic worms. They're actually giving, so in the functional medicine world, this is a real thing. That is not something that I'm an expert in, so I don't do it.
Right.
So I'm mostly looking for the pathogenic parasites, and
Okay.
we do a parasite cleanse that is very well tolerated by my patients. Ivermectin is an interesting drug. I've researched it a lot. I had a lot of requests for it for COVID, and my thought process was, how in the world is this killing COVID? How in the world is it killing all these things? And so
Yeah.
there's a lot of different pathways that I found, but needless to say that it is quite therapeutic, and it's kind of upsetting that if you prescribe ivermectin to a regular pharmacy, you actually have to have a diagnosis. Why am I giving this to this person? Now, the smaller pharmacies, the compounding pharmacies, they're really good with just filling our prescriptions that we want for our patients.
Amazing. And, shameless plug, but All Family Pharmacy is one of the sponsors of the Shannon Joy Show. An amazing, amazing company. They're out of Florida and they're great. They work with your doctor. They'll take the scripts and they will do bulk orders. So you can stock up if you want to get a nice little, stockpile of the necessary pharmaceutical products that you need. Ivermectin is one of them. It's obviously the most popular one that they push out. But yeah, no, there are a lot of different differing statements about ivermectin. But I would say from all the docs that I talked to, including you, and we've had Peter McCullough on the program and Dr. Mary Telly Bowden, lot of benefit to ivermectin. Now you can't overdose on it, and I mean, must you have it? Maybe not. I would say there are probably natural things that you could do, to begin with. But so you start with the gut, and when you say you want to protect, basically you want to the stomach has all kinds of nasty stuff in it, and so if that lining is damaged or perforated or what they call a leaky gut, then all of the bad things in your stomach as you're metabolizing food are going to literally leak out into other systems in places they're not supposed to be. And then that has all sorts of impact. So what are some of the things that you find work well for healing the gut? And we don't have to go, deep. I'm sure every patient is different, but what are some of the biggest culprits that you find in terms of bad gut health, and what are the things that fix those?
So we're going to focus on leaky gut, what helps with leaky gut the most. And of course, the number one thing is removing what is causing the leaky gut. And what's really interesting is when you have leaky gut, which is what my patients have a hard time understanding initially, because when they've removed certain things out of their diet that they're ingesting, all of a sudden they start to feel better. And why is that? One of the reasons that is because it's really hard to digest food. And what happens is, like, for example, gluten with a non-celiac gluten patient. So this is just gluten in a regular patient. This big, huge protein has to be broken down into amino acids. Protein has to be broken down into amino acids for it to be digested and usable. But what's happening when you have leaky gut is a lot of undigested food is going through the leaky gut. And right on that other side of the gut lining is your gut-associated lymphoid tissue, which is your immune system. So
Okay.
aside from straight into your bloodstream. So a little tiny piece of egg is not going into your bloodstream, but what's happening is the body's having to attack and, create antibodies to all these food products. So that's really, really important. My number one way to start healing the gut is really to do a proper sort of anti-inflammatory diet. That's number one. And we do a partial elimination with removing high-risk foods such as eggs, dairy, and gluten, corn sometimes, maybe a couple other things. And we really go into healing that gut lining. We look at digestive enzymes. Are you making enough digestive enzymes? Are you making enough acid in your stomach? So we have other ways of finding that out. Reason why that's so important is because, for example, if you're taking like a omeprazole for stomach acid reflux, and you literally shut down acid production in your stomach by 95%, then what's happening is this mixture of food and a little bit of acid gets dumped into the small intestine. If you don't have a really good acidic mixture going into the small intestine, then it partially does not trigger on your pancreas to secrete these enzymes and your gallbladder to contract and make this bile. So really you're limiting how much nutrients that you're going to be able to absorb, and you're also decreasing the ability to break down these foods, which then creates all these secondary problems. So digestive enzymes, removing critical foods, removing critical pathogens. So we look at things like SIBO and parasites and potential pathogens in your gut. So we do all of it. We do all of it. You got to do all of it.
Oh my God, this show is not going to be long enough. We could
talk for 2 hours on just gut health.
You're going to come on. Well, we're going to do it because number one, the live chat is exploding. Everybody has questions. Everyone has comments. People are asking about fasting. They're asking about thyroid health. I'm a big fan of fasting. It's also something that has been recommended by many of the docs who have been on the Shannon Joy Show over the past few years. And through COVID, we had so many medical doctors. But yes, CJP Rumble on the live chat says, please come back several times. Zen Woman, I can't. We have so many questions. We've got to get to the topic of the show too, because we do have to discuss EMF. But before we do that, I do want to get your thoughts on the headlines of the day. There are sources here for all of you in the Shannon Joy Show notes. We have a really good conversation between our friend Dr. Peter McCullough and Daniel Horowitz on the insane culling of millions of chickens to combat avian flu. We also have a CHD report on the Texas measles outbreak that everyone is freaking out about right now. And so there are some sources there in the show notes. But let's start with you, Dr. Williams, on the chicken culling, right? So we're all ramped up about another avian flu. It seems like you can't swing a dead cat without hitting some type of bird flu every single year that's going to kill everyone. And the mass slaughter of these poor animals. We're going to eat them anyway, but they've met an untimely end. What do you think about what's going on with this administration? Again, the Trump administration is pursuing the Biden policies inexplicably. What are your thoughts?
So number one is, I look at these poor chickens just like I did when we looked at ourselves as humans with this COVID vaccine, right? It's, what is this virus? What's it do? How can we contain it? How is it spreading? So those are the things I look at personally, not so much when a bird gets this H5N1 flu, it has a very, very high chance of dying from it. And it also has a very good chance of spreading it. And so then you want to look at how is it being spread? And is there things we can do about that? So that's where I would really be focusing on. The spread of this virus is through, either fecal routes, so contaminating the air, the environment that you're in, and then other birds are also then exposed to it, especially near water sources. And also through the feeding sources, especially if you have this virus and you have nasal or oral or even eye secretions going into this food, of course you're going to then start spreading it everywhere. So my money would really be focused on How can we decrease that? And it all goes back to this, unfortunately, is when you look at the when you look at how we're raising chickens in
Yeah.
the masses, that's the main, to me, that's a huge problem.
Yeah.
If you had chickens running around free and not so close together, and it would be a lot. It would be a lot easier to to raise these chickens. Of course, then the eggs would be more expensive, and chicken would be more expensive, but it would be better for you. And you would just we're eating way too much in this country. So
In general, we all need to lose a little weight in this country. I mean, we need to get a grip on our food sources. And it's interesting when you think about the stress factor of millions of chickens, like in these tiny little cages. They never get out of cages. Even on the organics, it's actually scandalous. Some of these organic chicken harvesting farms, a lot of them who are behind, who are basically voluntarily killing all of their chickens, and they're being paid off by the government to do so, right? And also advocating that all chickens now be shot up with mRNA vaccines. What do you think about that? Like, what would shooting an mRNA vaccine into a chicken do to the production of their eggs? And could that be passed on? Could some of that be passed on to humans?
there's so much unknown, and I personally I would not eat one of those eggs or chickens. And so there's way, way too many unknowns. I really believe that we're approaching this problem different. We should definitely be looking at this problem with this multiple solutions from a different angle rather than, hey, let's just vaccinate, because that's the old way of just prescribing a medication for every ailment. And there's a part of us as physicians, we want to heal our patients, right? There's a lot of empathy that goes into being a doctor in terms of feeling what our patients are feeling. So we want to do everything we can to help them. And prescriptions and vaccines is one thing. And if you don't know any better, you might think that's the best choice. But, and I didn't know any better my first couple of years of practice, because that's what I was taught in medical school.
Right.
And so when I started exploring other options, I found other options. I think that's what we need to do, is we need to look at other options. And I think that the government is looking at other options, like the creating boundaries and fences, things like that, to separate the different chickens from one another. Having chickens that go out to a state farm and come back in, and having a period of isolation just in case they bring something into the big group of chickens and things like that. There are things that you can do, but yeah, they're incentivized to kill their chickens right now. That's the bottom line. And so what's happening then, of course, on our end, on the consumer end, is that we're paying a lot more for the same food that.
Well, and you would think that they would prefer to keep the healthy chickens alive to develop a natural immunity to said avian flu, rather than killing all the healthy chickens and with healthy immune systems. It just makes absolutely no sense. Get your local organic chicken farmer, beef farmer, organic farmers. Like, this is where we really advocate for people to dial in locally, know your community, know your neighbors, and really try to locally source your food. I think that's going to be a major trend and a major theme for 2025 and beyond, when we see this madness coming from the federal government. And it really is madness. We also now have they're trying to do this, Dr. Williams. I don't know if they're going to be able to, but they're ramping up the fear porn about a measles outbreak in Texas. We've seen the headlines. I think one person has died, but it's very hazy as to how they died, when they died, what they died from, if there was a causal impact from the measles, if indeed they had the measles. But this is coming out of Texas, and it has penetrated the media cycle to such an extent that it was the source of discussion in a press conference yesterday in the, with President Trump and Robert Kennedy Jr., who said, tried to kind of downplay the hysteria. But he also didn't mention something that I think is really important. We'll look into this. We're going to run this tomorrow on the Shannon Joy Show. But a very important statement from Geert Vanden Bosch, and something that is very concerning to many in the medical freedom community and continues to be important to the people in the medical freedom community. And that is permanent and sustained immune system damage as a mechanism of the COVID-19 shot. So for those who did get the shots, the versions of the shots that had the high levels of spike protein. We don't really know what were in all the shots, but for those who indeed do have those levels, we could be looking at a population of people who are permanently immunosuppressed. And if that's the case, then it's not going to take a lot. It could take a benign virus to really take out certain populations of people, which I think is the larger part of the story, which RFK didn't address yesterday. And I think it leaves us vulnerable to future pandemics or outbreaks that are really not about the virus. It's more about the damaged immune systems. And that's just my own layperson's opinion here. But I'm curious as to what you think about that and what you think about this outbreak that we're dealing with now in Texas.
So back when I first, when I first became a doctor, and I believe it was in 2000, I remember the CDC reporting that we have now, for the most part, eradicated measles, and which was kind of cool back then to just see that, and also just to look at cases of measles being eradicated, not just so much in this country, but in other countries where the mortality rate from measles was a lot higher because of inadequate care and things of that nature. But now, to this point, with this particular case in Texas, there's a lot of what you said. Also, I tried finding information on, was this person vaccinated? Was he or she not vaccinated? Were there comorbidities involved? Was this child, this person also had other risk factors? Did this person have pneumonia and then have measles? So we don't know. We really don't know. And, I have to say, we don't know the status of just the, it's Texas, right? So you have to think about all the migrants who have come into that country and everything they have brought in. So there's so many unknowns. And I think that when you look at the historical outbreaks, we're seeing outbreaks every couple of years. And back when, before I believe we had the MMR vaccine was created in the 1960s, we would also have rampant outbreaks. And back then we would have about 3 or 4 million cases a year that resulted in about 400 deaths. The bigger picture too is the long-term consequences of measles. And that's what's really caused a lot of phone calls in my practice for the past couple of days with some children who are not immunized, and should we get immunizations right now? And what are the long-term consequences and effects? So these are conversations we're having. I think it's a personal decision whether or not you have the MMR vaccine. But I think that in our practice, when our patients decided to have the MMR vaccine, we would follow up a year or two later with titers to make sure that they're properly their antibodies are high enough to be considered immune. Also, when we gave the MMR vaccine, we would never give that in conjunction with any other vaccines. We always separated every one of our vaccines. It's how we've done it for over 25 years. And now now I have a virtual only practice, so I don't actually give vaccines out. So.
Okay. When I did my research back in New York, we had the measles outbreak in Rockland County, and they quarantined an entire population of Hasidic Jews, I believe, in Rockland County. And it was a major thing. They used that outbreak, by the way, to pass a bill in the New York State legislature at 3:00 in the morning under very suspicious circumstances that ripped away the religious exemption for every family and child in New York State, throwing out 26,000 children out of public, private, and parochial schools in New York State. So when I was looking at measles for my kids, the vaccine, I did the root, it's always a cost benefit analysis for me. And what I found was that based on the statistics that I was able to find and the studies that I was able to find, the likelihood of them being injured or having an adverse event from the measles vaccine was about the same or more likely than them dying or having a serious reaction to the measles virus itself. So, I decided as a parent, I'd recommend Vax Unvax, Brian Hooker's book that he co-authored with RFK Jr. on those topics, because it really does that cost benefit analysis for almost every single vaccine on the childhood schedule, so that you guys can make good decisions, because it is a personal choice. And even though I make, choices for my kids and my family, I know that people, what we're really looking for is informed consent, knowing the costs, in the benefits, and then personal choice ultimately. So I really appreciate that you allow your clients, as we all should, the decision to make those decisions for themselves. Today we're talking to fantastic guest, Dr. Basima Williams. You can find her website at beingfunctional.com, and you can take a look at the Feel Good Gut Health course there. It's at beingfunctional.com. When we come back, we're going to get into EMF. And I hope you have a little bit more time. We're going a little bit longer. I don't know if that's okay with you, but again, it's just, you're so good and there are so many questions. But I really want to talk about EMF, and it's another one of those very contentious scientific, right, where the science is saying nothing to see here with screens and 5G towers and electromagnetic fields, these invisible areas of energy. How does that impact our health? We're going to talk to Dr. Basima Williams about that. She's an expert in this, and we're going to get her thoughts when we come back right here on the Shannon Joy Show.
You have to stay healthy and well at times like this. You know that I often have suffered from mobility issues, and now I don't. Part of my lifestyle is Native Path collagen. So Native Path's collagen formula is made with ingredients that are scientifically developed to increase bone mineral density, support tissue recovery, reduce wrinkles, enhance hair thickness, and strengthen nails. Who wouldn't want more collagen with all of these benefits? So right now, when you visit getnativepath.com/dailyclout, you can stock up on Native Path collagen for up to an incredible 45% off today, plus free shipping. Every order comes with a 365-day money-back guarantee. You can try it risk-free today. It is a single ingredient formula with no fillers, additives, or artificial sweeteners, and it's third-party tested for heavy metals, which makes sure that it is pure and safe. It's flavorless. You can add it to anything. I add it to my oatmeal. You can add it to coffee or smoothies. Its formula makes it more bioavailable, meaning it's absorbed more easily and mixes without clumping. And the best part is Native Path is offering amazing bundle deals, 3 or 6 packs at a fraction of the price of other brands. With over 4 million jars sold, 1 million happy customers, 8,000 5-star reviews, and a 365-day no-risk guarantee, Native Path is a trusted choice, and they offer an 800 number. You can ask any question. A real person is waiting to help. You can join a private Facebook community. I love these people. Share recipes, success stories. So that's getnativepath.com/dailyclout and start your experience of transformation today.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Shannon Joy Show. Of course, that was Paul Stone. He is a superstar. Guest hosted the Shannon Joy Show last week while we were on vacation, and he's going to be joining us next week on Friday in the Joy Virtual Studio to talk more about the financial crisis that is looming and how you can protect yourself. I trust Colonial Metals Group. I use them for my physical gold and silver purchases, and they also have available to the Shannon Joy Show audience an option to protect and back up your retirement savings with a self-directed gold-backed IRA. Their staff is unbelievable. The nicest people you can ever imagine. As Paul Stone says, we don't hire jerks over at Colonial Metals Group, but they're just amazing, and they love this audience. They love the Shannon Joy audience. So go to colonialmetalsgroup.com/joy. Right now, if you have questions, they'll answer all of them, and they're always running great specials for the Joy audience, like a free safe, and they have silver deals as well. So make sure you check them out, colonialmetalsgroup.com/joy. Let's bring back into the Joy Virtual Studio Dr. Basima Williams, who is absolutely going to be a regular on the Shannon Joy Show. The audience absolutely loves you. Guitar Lily. Dr. Basima is awesome, all caps. Zen woman with 100%. Daily Clout is with us. Great to see you, our friends over at Daily Clout, who platform the Shannon Joy Show to their massive platform every day. We love Daily Clout. Great episode. And yeah, everyone they just absolutely love you. So thank you for this just amazing information. People are desperate for this type of information right now. There's so many lies out there, you know?
Yeah, if I can, again, if I can educate and empower, then I kind of check mark a success. That's a success story. So
Yes. Yeah.
that's my favorite thing to do.
Well, and then that banishes fear, which banishes anxiety, which banishes stress, which you identify as like the root cause.
Mhm.
It is stress and succumbing to stress that makes our immune systems vulnerable to all of these environmental toxins and these pharmaceutical toxins. Now I want to move to our topic of the show today, and it took us a while to get there because you're just so interesting, but that's okay. We're going to have you back again. EMF. It's somewhat controversial. I Googled it, right? I Googled studies about EMF. These are electromagnetic fields. It's invisible areas of energy. It's basically radiation. And it's associated with man-made lighting using electricity. It moves in waves and it comes at us from all of the screens, every direction, more and more. I mean, over the past 100 years, they've just piled one thing upon another, culminating with 5G, which is a concern for many people. We're going to add on football field length data processing centers that are attached to nuclear power reactors. By the way, that's Starlink. That's the latest plan by Larry Ellison. So it's just we're being hit from every direction. But if you Google it, it's perfectly safe. Nothing to see here. I mean, one headline after another. I went to Children's Health Defense. They have a great compilation of, it's about 17 pages of peer-reviewed studies on EMF and the impact on our bodies. But it's one of those areas where it reminds me of vaccines, Dr. Williams, where for decades you could not find anything. It's just safe and effective, safe and effective, safe and effective, right? And I get the same sense from EMF, but I want to kind of hand the show over to you, for the next 15, 20 minutes or so you can explain to everybody your research, what you found, the reality and the truth about EMF, and then we'll get into protection and how people can protect their bodies and the bodies of their children from these what I believe are harmful environmental toxins.
Absolutely. So in my practice, and also I do tend to have a curious mind, which is why I went into functional medicine anyway, just looking for other alternatives. So with that in mind, I started seeing more and more patients coming in with these weird symptoms like sleep sleep disturbances, insomnia, headaches, depression, so much more depression and anxiety, fatigue, concentration, memory challenges, dizziness, irritability, weight gain, restlessness, tinnitus cases just started going up. And I just started looking at other causes. And somehow down a rabbit hole, I found EMF. Could EMF possibly be a root cause? And I set out to prove that it wasn't. And I also set out to prove just what it was and how is it affecting our bodies at a cellular level, because that's what I really, just like the chickens, how's all that stress and eating, man-made food and all that stuff affecting their bodies. And so same thing with us humans. What is this? How is this EMF impacting our bodies? Is it impacting our bodies? And what is the FCC doing to help regulate exposure? Because certainly certainly our government would not be allowing this to happen if it was really true.
Of course not. They would never, ever, ever, ever. They love us so much, don't you know? I mean, they would just want us all to be happy and safe, and yeah.
And I really do. I really went into it with that mindset because I really wanted to prove it was not the cause of all these weird symptoms. And then also some studies came out with it potentially being carcinogenic. And so I just wanted to really delve into the research. So this is all research based. This is not my opinion. And this is the research that I found, which was shocking because it's out there and yet no one talks about it. And so what I found, first of all, is in around 1996, 1997, the FCC gave guidelines and regulations that we're still following today. That whole system, just that one sentence right there is so flawed based on the fact that technology has evolved so much since 1997. They also based their recommendations on a cell phone thermal energy exposure. So in other words, how hot does your skin get? Not electromagnetic field, not the actual energy going through to your cells inside of your body. So those two things were really disturbing. They also based it on a model of a man who was 220 pounds. So the specific absorption rate of that thermal energy was based on a human that was huge. I mean, what 2-year-old who's holding a cell phone is not getting a lot more exposure
Right.
to the thermal energy, but also to the electromagnetic fields. And then that all accumulated with a 2011 report that I read where the International Agency for Research on Cancer posed that the radio frequencies are possible human carcinogenic, and in fact proved it using rodent models. And this is way back in 2011. And how many of us have heard of all of this all this time? None of us. And so there's actually a research study by the ethics department at Harvard that that concluded with these multiple people that were interviewed, concluded with the FCC being a captured agency. So at that point, what I really felt like was that we're kind of on our own to really learn what it's really doing what it's doing to our biology, what it's doing to ourselves, and how can we decrease exposure to
Right.
the CMF. And as I dug more and more into it, it's not just humans, it's all the animals out there, it's all the plants out there. Anything that's alive is being affected by radio frequency waves.
Okay. Let's get into the science of what it actually is, and then how it impacts humans, plants, animals on that cellular level. Let's start there, and then we'll build out to the types of symptoms and illnesses that will manifest as a result of that exposure.
Radio frequency waves specifically target something called the calcium voltage ion channels. So they open them up and allow more calcium influx into a cell. The cell environment is a very protected environment. It's got something called a bilipid layer with some proteins on the outside and some channels to allow things come in and out to create a very specific concentration of calcium and other minerals and nutrients within a cell. When this is breached and we have a huge influx of calcium into a cell, we create a significant inflammatory response. We have an increase in something called reactive oxygen species. And this is what ages and damages the cell, the mitochondria, the DNA, all these things. And so what's happening is when we look at everything, including a diet that's high in sugar, right? That's causing an increase in reactive oxygen species. Us eating rancid seed oils, for example, increase in reactive oxygen species. So we're creating a pro-inflammatory cellular situation. And so EMF is just compounding all these other things that we do, lack of sleep, increase in stress, all these other things. So EMF is one thing, and it affects it. It's directly also proportional to how much exposure are you allowing yourself to have on a regular basis. So
okay, and so the EMF then penetrates, or it is emitted from our cell phones, our laptops, our TVs, our appliances, our radios, 5G towers, 4G towers. Everything around us, right? Are there any real bad actors in that group? People make a lot of a big deal about 5G, that the 5G towers are somehow different than all of the other electromagnetic fields that we're subjected to. What are your thoughts on that?
So the problem with 5Gs is they are stronger, the wavelength is smaller, but they also don't travel as far. So now we have to have a lot more of them everywhere.
Okay.
So that's number one. Number two, distance is your friend. So I don't want to say it doesn't matter what the EMF exposure is, but if you can create a distance between it, there are certain things that emit a lot more EMF than others. Like, for example, my router, with my EMF detector is very high compared to a cell phone. And so what we do at night is turn our router off. So that's decreasing exposure in our house, also keeping distance. The further you are from the source, the less EMF exposure that your cellular body has. There's also certain tissue in your body, especially the brain and the heart, that are more sensitive to EMF exposure. So a lot of things that we'll see either affect those two areas, plus also the reproductive system. So
Okay.
lots of studies on sperm and things like that, especially with cell phones in pockets and, so on and so forth.
Okay. And so the proximity of your phone to your body, what about a phone turned off? Is that safer than a phone turned off on? Would you recommend people put their phones in a drawer when they sleep, or what would you recommend for daily use?
So for everyday use, if you can, turn your phone on airplane mode, or if you put your phone in cases like which we'll get to later, we
Yeah.
put in a Faraday bag, then we have zero EMF exposure. Okay, so what we do in our bedroom is we turn off all electricity. So we have no electricity coming into our bedroom. We have nothing plugged in. So all of our lamps, our TVs, everything. Our cell phone is in either the bathroom or in the hallway.
Okay.
Plugged in if it needs to be. Don't ever use your phone if it's also plugged in, because it's just a lot more electrical conduction for your phone to your body. So don't use your phone if it's plugged in. Definitely don't go to bed with your phone next to your.
Okay, let me tell you what I do. Let me tell you what I do. I don't do this anymore, but I only stopped after I, began working with you guys at the satellite phone store, to fall asleep at night. And this is like Daniel Horowitz. I love you. He's like one of the best out there, but he always puts me to sleep. So I put my phone under my pillow so I don't disturb anyone, and literally sleep with my head on a pillow listening until I fall asleep. Really bad, right? Really bad.
Yeah, stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it. And learn other techniques like humming, which stimulates your vagal nerve, which
okay,
digest. And so deep breathing, that actually works.
Okay.
So it gets you into this sort of Zen phase when you really learn how to do it and you get really good at it. But you can learn other things to do. And then also there is some music you can listen to that actually has the radio frequencies that are actually sleep promoting. You can keep that in the hallway.
Yeah.
It would benefit everyone who can hear it if they're trying to go to bed. And so definitely don't. I mean, I don't even have my cell phone in my bedroom. So it's not in.
Oh, I believe you. I mean, how does this manifest? So I would really encourage all of you guys, linked in the show notes of the Shannon Joy Show, Children's Health Defense, comprehensive. Again, it's 17 pages of studies, peer-reviewed studies that say the exact opposite of what Google will say to you if you put in EMF studies and do they cause cancer and this and that. That way you can do your own homework. You can look at both and see, where you want to stand. I am convinced that that the EMFs are impacting my life, my family's life in so many ways. How do my father-in-law, for example, is really struggling with tinnitus. And it's interesting that they recently moved. They lived in an apartment building that was cement. So they were enclosed in this kind of, cement apartment building. They moved to a new place in a home that is very, very, you can literally see a 5G tower, like right out their window. And I mean, the proximity immediately, his tinnitus is just, it's unbearable for him. In fact, he has the Faraday beanie, and he has the Faraday blanket, and he's beginning to look at, I should probably give him your number as well, because he's really struggling with it. But those two items are one of the only things that give him relief at this point, because it is so bad. What are the impacts, the most consistent negative health impacts that you see as a functional doctor in terms of EMF?
So I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. It's the nervous system. It's definitely impacted. So it's the brain, all things brain, coordination, dizziness, lightheadedness, the tinnitus, so definitely that's something that we're seeing. But the problem is that they are so non-specific. They actually gave it a name called hypersensitivity syndrome, EMF hypersensitivity syndrome. That is actually a thing. The problem is that all those things in there are very non-specific, which is really kind of concerning that more and more people are having these. And again, you just have to look at the data. I have a front row seat with patients coming in and all these weird things coming. So then that's where I get to start looking and researching. But this is real. This is sort of the same things I saw 25 years ago. And when we start seeing patterns, we need to be concerned about what it's doing long term to our bodies. So these patterns of the nervous system being affected, people under more stress and anxiety and depression, but then that can also be due to just using your cell phone in general for social media to the point where you're on it for hours, and the dopamine surge it. You really dampen your dopamine receptors so that nothing gets you excited anymore. But all of these, so that also makes you, have a higher
Right.
risk.
The kind of like gambling casino thing where you scroll, and when you see a like, you get like a dopamine hit.
Yeah.
I suffer. Like, listen, my world is on social media. I do a lot of my work on social media, and I see it in myself where I'm like, what are you doing? It's like every time someone comments or likes, I feel really good about myself. Again, I've mentioned how I am training myself off of all of these things. I don't think that, and I'm talking to my kids as well. Migraines, constant migraines. So many of my friends have constant migraines, and even my daughter, she'll mention fluorescent lights in school that
Yeah.
really will trigger. I'm like, you are 16 years old. Why are you getting headaches? She doesn't get headaches when she's playing beach volleyball, ever. Never, ever, ever, ever. When she's on the beach, like smashing the volleyball down, she does not get headaches. It's only when she enters the institutional public educational system with the fluorescent lights that she complains of the headaches. It's crazy. Now,
Yeah.
you're not, I know what people are going to say, Dr. Williams, that you are a Luddite, that you want to go back to 1822 and live on a farm and no one can have their technology, and that's not reasonable, and all of these things. What do you say to people who are like, that dismiss everything and basically say we're crazy people, and we just need to accept this. This is inevitable, right? Like, this is the new 21st century economy and we all just have to accept it. What do you say to them?
First of all, I think the people listening to your show probably agree with us. So I think that's good. The second thing I want to say is this 21-year-old patient who said, and so she said, "Look, don't you think we all know?" And this is kind of her smirky attitude. Don't you think we all know cell phones aren't good for us? But how can we live without them? And I'm like, ooh, wow. That's so true, because you know what? You didn't know what life was like without cell phones. So this new generation has no clue how to read a roadmap. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, it's really interesting. So this goes back to, listen, everything we've covered today. Okay. When you think about the vaccines and you think about EMF and you think, and there's hills that people are willing to die on, EMF is causing all my problems. And for some people, it is largely contributing. But I think everything in my years of practice, what I have heard is, this is my opinion of, patients want to be heard. That's all. They want to be heard. They want to be, they want the facts. All these women who, and moms and dads who are not giving their children vaccines, they want to be heard because they have seen an association with vaccine and outcome A that they don't want. And they don't want their child to be exposed to that. They just want to be heard and they want to be taken seriously. So same exact thing with EMF. And look, the data now is so, again, I went into this trying to disprove this, but the amount of data, when I saw this 2021 study that said mobile phone use decreased overall sperm quality, quantity, motility, and concentration. They actually did a study on some rodents that they actually, after 5 generations, the amount of sperm that was actually viable in the 5th generation of the rodent was almost none.
Right.
I mean, that's infertility. That's what one of the reasons why this study actually came out is because more and more men, when you go to an infertility clinic, more and more men are coming out to be the problem. But and because their sperm is not good. So here's what I would say. If it's affecting your sperm, and we know that for sure, because these are actual humans, and we know that for sure, and it's affecting the sperm's cellular function, how is it not affecting every single cell in your body?
Right.
Of course it is.
Right.
And so that's where, we're seeing record number of cases of thyroid cancer. And interestingly, when they took the antenna from up here to down here, So, we get less brain cancer, but now we're getting more thyroid cancer. So just changing the location of the antenna. Like,
Wild.
yeah. So yeah, I can go on and on and on. These cases were, these studies were mind blowing. And then even more so, what was mind blowing, kind of upset me, is the fact that other countries are doing things about it and we are not. So there are other countries that actually do not allow 5G towers near their schools. There are countries that do not allow tablets in anyone who's 6 years old and below.
Right.
And we're not doing anything about
Yeah.
it. We're just going on business as usual. And the FCC has got to be held more responsible. I will say there's a author, her name is Deidre Davies.
Okay.
She's a PhD. She actually sued the FCC and won recently. And now she's holding their feet to the fire in terms of when they are going to make the changes in terms of their recommendations. So there is some light at the end of the tunnel, but what we do is we really preach on, I'm going to just put this on really quick. I
There
wear
you go. That's the beanie. I have one. Yep.
a beanie today, so I'm giving you the beanie. I wear my beanie in between seeing patients when I'm typing up their chart and their to-do list. I will actually put this on. So I have one here. I also have one upstairs right next to my nightstand. I wear it at nighttime, trying to protect my brain, trying to wear the blanket, the EMF blanket, and things like that. Those are things you can do. Obviously, the easiest thing to do is to shut it down, shut it off,
Right.
decrease exposure, increase space between you and the thing.
Yeah.
Do not put this on your body anywhere.
Anywhere.
When you're running, in your bra, on the side, inside of your pants waistline, in your pocket. Like, this is direct exposure. So do not wear it anywhere. And if you have to, carry it, we actually created a whole bunch of product to help carry all these EMF products.
Yeah. So amazingly, Dr. Basima Williams is the sister of Tina Blanco, who has been on the Shannon Joy show multiple times. It's a family company, the satellite phone store. You guys hear about them all the time. Again, they have everything. They have the solar panels, the generators, everything that you need when the power goes out. So they have cell phone plans, all the things. But one of the things that I've really appreciated is their line of Faraday products. So the Faraday bags, the Faraday beanies, the Faraday blankets, the backpacks, the handbags. Not only does the Faraday technology protect your phone or your device from an EMP attack, if there ever to be one, but it also protects you from your device, which is why I really like it. I have one right here, actually. Well, I have a cell phone, and this is the escape. This is just a little pouch. So you could grab this and just put your phone in this on, at your bedside. So if you want to just slip it in there, and then you're completely protected from the EMF. And I've been wearing the beanie every night to bed, right? Because I got to do the job, and I wear my beanie sometimes, but at night to bed, I feel like just that, those 8 hours, those 9 hours of protection, a rest for my brain, so to speak. I think it's been a huge help. So you guys, darkbags.com, I think they're running a special. Darkbags.com is where I've been sending you guys to sat123.com, which is fine. But I think you guys have to go through a couple clicks and pages in order to get to the Faraday products. So if you just want to get there quick, of course, everything is 10% off with the Joy promo code. So darkbags.com. If you want to look into that, there are lots of Faraday products. So do your own homework and figure out, what it is that you want to do. But it is always wonderful when you guys support the sponsors of the Shannon Joy Show. This is why we can bring these really important shows to you on a regular basis. I'm going to let you go, Dr. Williams. The audience loves you. Bring her back. All caps, Shannon. Everybody wants you to come back. I really do. I feel like she's legit, says CJP Rumble. Where is Dr. Williams located? Well, let's not give her location out. But you have a practice. You have a functional medicine practice, and her practice is beingfunctional.com. That's beingfunctional.com. She has a feel good gut health course that is also at the website, and a ton of information. And you are just helping so many people. I am so thrilled to have you as an expert guest. And yes, everyone, I will bring her back. I promise you, we'll bring her back. Anything else you want to let the audience know? I think we just touched the surface on so many important issues, but I'd like to make this a regular feature and bring you back on a regular basis to really talk to this audience about our health, all of the things, not just EMF, but the vaccines and the viruses and the environmental toxins and the air and the water and the food and all the things. But any last words before I let you go, and then we're going to go and close out the show.
Yeah. Just a couple things. A lot of people are asking about earbuds. Yeah, don't do the earbuds. These have little tiny antennas. They are connecting to that cell phone all the time. The second thing is one of my favorite areas to use this bag is actually while I'm driving. So when you're driving, and if your phone isn't on airplane mode and you really don't want to be detectable, the reason is because you are constantly pinging all sorts of antennas the entire time that you're driving. The other big thing is don't use your cell phone while you're driving, like making calls. Like we are so high strung nowadays because we are on fight or flight 24/7. We're always having to do something. So always catching up on phone calls in the car. So consider just having that peacetime in the car. The problem with that is if you have EMF in your car, you're really trapping it in there in that heavy metal. Also, when you're traveling, like on trains and things like that, try not to have your cell phone on. Definitely put it on airplane mode at the very least. The last thing I want to touch on is I'm actually speaking at the Autism Health Conference in April in San Diego. If you're interested in going there, it's the autismhealth.com. You can go to the conference section. I think you might have a code for a discount. But the reason I'm going is because children are exposed to electromagnetic waves over a longer period of time than you and I have been, because they have been exposed to it on a regular basis. And a child's head absorbs a lot more radio frequency energy than adults do. Now, when you have your cell phone in the car and you've given it to your child to use, because that's what you do nowadays. Back when we had kids, at least when I had kids, we didn't have any entertainment for them. We actually talked with our kids and stuff like that. But anyway, when you have your phone, download whatever it is they get to watch in the car, because inevitably that's going to happen, especially if you have like a 3-hour trip. Download it. Do not live stream it. Download it, put it on airplane mode, and then give it to your child. And also teach your child not to do this.
Gosh, I know.
Have it over here, that kind of thing. The smaller the exposure, the better. So a big tablet versus a little.
Well, I feel like a terrible mother now. Thank you very much, Dr. Williams. Mom of the year right here. All of those things I have done to my poor children. We're going to get better, though.
It's because we haven't been educated.
We didn't know.
And the only reason I probably didn't do it is because I didn't have that option back then. I remember singing songs in the car with my kids. So
amazing. The code is AHS50. Autismhealth.com is the website. AHS50 for $50 off your tickets. Dr. Williams will be speaking there. Her website, so darkbags.com, where you can get all the gear and get that Faraday equipment, the best Faraday equipment, by the way, on the market. And then also beingfunctional.com if you want to reach out to the good doctor. My friend, thank you so much for being with us. We must do this again, okay?
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Shannon.
Oh, absolutely. We'll do it again for sure. Guys, thank you so much for being with us today. And I see you, Annie, my producer. She's not producing the show today, but she's lurking on the live chat to remind me that I have to wrap up the show. Thank you. Thank you to Dr. Basima Williams and the folks at the Satellite Phone Store. Without their sponsorship, we could not bring these great shows to you on a regular basis. Also, All Family Pharmacy. Again, we talked about ivermectin today. allfamilypharmacy.com/joy. Stock up on your ivermectin. You can buy it in bulk. This is one of the only places that provides that service, and they are amazing sponsors of the Shannon Joy Show. And of course, Dom Polano. We didn't talk about Dom. He's my financial advisor, and he is with PCMPolano.com. He has been with me as a sponsor of the Shannon Joy Show since the very beginning. He's also my financial manager and my financial advisor. He's opening up his practice to the Joy audience. He has clients all over the country and the world. You can get in touch with Dom. If you're in the markets and you want a financial advisor you can trust, 1-800-536-1368. That's 1-800-536-1368 for the best financial advisor in the United States of America. Mine, Don Polano. You guys are amazing. Dakota Feathers, thank you so much. Great show. Thanks, SJ. Dr. Basima is amazing. That's great. Oh, Mark the Reagan. How come all of Shannon's guests are so nice? It's unreal. We are so blessed, aren't we? We have the best sponsors, the best guests, the kindest people. And I just thank Jesus every day for this little family that we have, that we continue to grow. I couldn't do it without all of you. Vidana, looking forward to the podcast on this one. Wink, wink. Absolutely. We're going to get that podcast up and running. For those of you who haven't been able to get the Shannon Joy podcast, we had a major technical glitch over the past, since the 13th. There was some kind of button that wasn't pushed. I'm not sure why, but the show hasn't been uploading to Spotify and Apple and all of my podcast platforms for some reason. That's been since February 13th. Before February 13th, we've been doing gangbusters. We're up over 5 million downloads on all of the episodes before that, but we haven't had the shows uploaded. So thank you guys for alerting me to that via email. And we fixed it. So you should see all of those shows begin to populate on the podcast platforms. Thank you to Dr. Basima Williams. She's amazing. Thanks to all of you. Hopefully we'll have Annie back tomorrow to produce the Shannon Joy Show, and we will close out the week on Friday. Thank you so much for being with us. We will be back tomorrow to do it all again right here on the Shannon Joy Show.